Mga katribo, kayo nakatutok pa rin sa
Gising na!
At syempre, gaya ng naipangako natin, Katribong Comfy.
Yeah,
Special episode today. Dahil
Makakasama natin ang Ambassador of India na si His Excellency Kumaran. And we're very welcome, sir. Welcome to our show. And Gising na is shown live on DZR on Radyo Bayo TV and simulcast over DZRJ 810 AM. And we are also live streamed over the Facebook pages of Daily Tribune, Radyo Bayo TV, and DZRJ. And of course, all our discussion will be published tomorrow in tomorrow's issue of the Daily Tribune. So, Your Excellency, welcome to Gising na.
Thank you very much for having
welcome
me.
to Gising na, Excellency.
Thank you.
Okay. And for our first question, of course, let's start with the question and answer with the ambassador. For our first question, sir. The Philippines and India have always enjoyed 70 years of diplomatic relationships, which have been described as friendly and unproblematic. So, what more can we expect from this friendly relationship between our two nations?
Well, I think India and the Philippines have a very long tradition of friendship. But today, I think we are both very dynamic economies. And I think we are also asserting our place in the global order. So I think the outlook for the India-Philippines relationship is extremely positive from in different sectors, politically, in terms of defense and security, our economic and trade partnership, but most importantly also the people-to-people relations between our people.
Can I expound on your statement about the India and the Philippines are two growing economies? In fact, we are expected to grow faster than the rest of the world this year, and we need to ascertain our position in the global arena. So how do you see that? How do you see that we can ascertain our positions, both the Philippines and India, as we grow, as we are the two nations that are growing faster than the rest of the world?
And how do both Philippines and India keep our relations robust?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think it's important to recognize that there's a momentum going forward, both for India and the Philippines. As you rightly said, we are very fast-growing economies. We are the fastest growing, actually. Last year, we were among the fastest growing economies in the world. And our demographics, which means the number of young people in both India and the Philippines, the percentage is among the highest in the world. So the potential for growth in terms of economic growth is very strong in India and the Philippines. So what we need to do, of course, is we need to work together to create an international environment that facilitates our growth. That means having arrangements that will support us to do more trade and investment, both with each other but also with others. And we also need to bring about more conversations between the business communities in India and the Philippines, and we've been trying to do that. To get Indian businesses more interested in the Philippines, and vice versa, to get Philippines businesses to look at India as a partner. And I think there are very promising signs in this regard.
Ambassador, very recently, you and the Secretary of the ILG, I just would like you to please mention that so that our Katribos will know what India has been doing to help us. So you signed an agreement or some sort of grant with our DILG Secretary. Will you please tell that about it or discuss about it with our Katribos?
Well, the development activities in various parts of the Philippines, but also try to bring some of the innovative development models that are there. And since both India and the Philippines are democracies, but we also have a large development deficit, meaning there are a lot of people who need to be supported, whether it be in terms of education, health, or in sectors like agriculture. There are a lot of innovations that need to come in so that our people at the local level can benefit. So the Secretary Abalos and I signed this agreement that helps us, India, to provide some grant-funded projects in the Philippines.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, and of course to the government of India for helping us out, helping your Filipino brothers and sisters. Thank you so much. So India is a major trading partner of the Philippines, particularly in the pharmaceutical, IT, BPO, and even defense. And our trading relation is rapidly expanding. which areas or industry can India and Philippines further grow our trading ties?
Well, as you mentioned, healthcare and pharmaceuticals, especially after the pandemic, has become very important. I think there's a great priority on trying to make pharmaceuticals more affordable and more accessible to people. And just about 10 days ago, we had a very interesting launch in the Philippines where there's an Indian company that is a health tech startup. And what they've done is they've used very regular thermal scanners with artificial intelligence to screen for breast cancer in a very non-invasive way.
Wow.
And that brings down the cost by about 1/10 of what it
wow.
is. So what we're having this sort of focus on trying to bring in new technology-driven applications that can help reduce the burden on people in the healthcare sector. The IT BPO sector is also very promising. This sector has grown even during the pandemic. There was double-digit growth. And I think this sector is changing. Younger people need to be trained better to be able to access this sector. So I think this is another area where we can work together. As you know, Indian companies are very big presence in the IT BPO sector in the Philippines. We kind of have a very strong shared partnership in this sector. So I think this sector will be again an area of great interest. There are Indian companies in airports, like as you know, the Cebu airport. The partnership was with an Indian company. They also worked on the Clark airport. We can look at infrastructure projects. We are having a conversation with the government of Philippines as to some projects in the railway sector, for example. You could see investments in infrastructure. So you could also see investments in various other activities across the economic space, because as you might be aware, your readers might be aware, that India is now the 5th largest economy in the world, and very soon we hope to be the 3rd largest economy, and we are next door to the Philippines. And this means that across the different sectors, we will find more business cooperation between India and the Philippines.
And speaking of IT, we understand there will be a big event sometime on the 27th of this month in India, in New Delhi, showcasing all the IT companies.
Yes.
Can you please...
We have these trade events that are there in India from time to time, and this is an event where we are inviting software and technology companies to come and attend. We would hope that more Philippines businesses would look at visiting India for these trade fairs and understanding what's happening.
We gathered that several businessmen are scheduled to visit.
We just last month we had a very successful electrical exhibition, and for the first time we had a strong Philippines presence.
Ambassador, you mentioned that, of course, the Philippines and India are two of the fastest growing economies in the world. The Indian economy is forecasted to be the number 3 top in the world in the next couple of years, and the Philippines is also moving at the top of the economic ladder. But of course, you've also mentioned that both sides of our fences, there are sectors in our population that needs more assistance through innovation. So with that, having said that, in terms of investments, the Philippine-Indian relations in that area, how can we further improve our investment relationship so that we can both achieve our goal of climbing higher in the economic ladder, while at the same time providing inclusive growth to our sectors that needs more assistance?
Yeah, so our analysis is that the primary objective is to try and expand the knowledge about what's happening in each other's economies among the business communities, which is why we in the embassy over the past 2 years, we've done a virtual and hybrid and physical nearly 30 events to bring together more than 1,000 business representatives over these events from both countries. And I think I can already see that this conversation is beginning to have an impact in terms of how Indian companies are coming in here. For example, in the healthcare space, there's an Indian company which is setting up dialysis centers in the Philippines, Nefru Plus. And they have scaled up from 0 in 2 years ago to 24 centers now.
Oh, wow.
And they have much more new centers coming up. If you look at the entire spectrum of the healthcare, medical devices, pharmaceutical sector, that's very promising. The IT and BPO sector is very promising. But even beyond that, chemical sector, there's been investments. There have been investments. One of our largest conglomerates, Wipro, has invested more than $200 million a few years ago in the Philippines to take up the Splash Corporation. They're doing cosmetics and other products. So essentially, I think as we have more information and more exchanges, investment opportunities will begin to get realized.
And our Katribos, for the information of our Katribos, there are a lot of India businesses, business owners who are investing in the Philippines, and soon they will be a
road show, a caravan.
A road show, yeah, a road show, and that will be, I think on the 27th will be in Lawag.
Lawag, Ilocos.
Oh, so mga Katibu, we should be thankful that we have a friendly neighbor.
Where we don't have any real estate issues.
So anyway, the Philippine-India trade relations are anchored in the ASEAN-India Free Trade Area, or AIFTA, Ambassador, which came into effect in 2011. What have been the gains of both countries from AIFTA?
I think this has provided the framework for our companies to trade with each other better. And if you see the trade relationship between the Philippines and India, it has grown nearly 3 times from the time that free trade agreement was launched, the ASEAN-India Free Trade Agreement. But we want to be more ambitious. So which is why we've proposed that we go into a preferential trade agreement between India and the Philippines. And this will allow us to have a focused liberalization of tariffs and also look at some of the non-tariff issues that are there in ongoing discussions to ensure that our exporters are not, shall we say, able to access the market at the same terms as our other exporters. So we provide more competition and thereby offer more to each other's markets and our consumers. So generally, I think the idea is that we will continue to work on trade liberalization, building on the ASEAN-India Free Trade Agreement, which is also being reviewed shortly. And I think the PTA will provide a short-term boost in terms of expanding access in areas of interest. We do hope that we can take up this discussion on a preferential trade agreement soon.
So talking about this preferential trade agreement between India and the Philippines, but there's also the RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Enhanced Partnership, with at least 18 members, I think, and India is not a member of that. So does India prefer to have a PTA with the Philippines instead of just or joining RCEP, which also includes this kind of framework?
Yeah, so we had obviously taken a considered decision not to join RCEP because we felt that some arrangements, some parts of that arrangement would not be very beneficial to the industrial development in India. So at the same time, we are very open to having more trade and freer trade. It is that we would, in that context, we would like to have, and we've had recently very successful conclusion of trade negotiations with the UAE and with Australia. We are having ongoing discussions with the UK, with the European Union, with Canada. And I think the Philippines, as a growing economy, we would really like to see a more focused effort on the part of both governments to open up the markets for each other's products. And that is why we want to bring in this PTA. So it is not really linked to what we did with RCEP, except in the sense that we were not comfortable with some parts of what the RCEP agreement brought to the table. So we didn't join that. But we would definitely like to have more trade. We'd like our companies to be more globalized and integrated.
Do you have a specific industries that you want to be included in the PTA?
Well, at the moment, we have not got to the point where we'll exchange lists, but definitely there are a range of industries that we would like to see covered under this, wherein we feel that we have competitive advantages. And I'm sure the Philippine side will also come up with some lists of what they feel that their competitive advantages and would like to access this multi-trillion-dollar Indian market.
What shared benefits, Ambassador, or strength do you think both our nation will have in pursuing PTA?
Well, I think what we want to see is that, A, of course, we want to expand our trade relations. So a PTA will provide an incentive for greater trade by opening up some identified sectors for greater access. So Philippines products will enjoy some greater access in some sectors of your interest in India and vice versa. The other thing that we want to say is that we want to signal, as I'm saying, to our business communities that both governments see this. And even when we had this telephone conversation recently between Prime Minister Modi of India and President Marcos of the Philippines, both the leaders were very keen to try and push forward this business partnership, the economic partnership. So the PTA is both substantively important, but also important as a signal to show that both governments are keen to promote this relationship.
So how's the progress in discussion regarding that PTA? Is
So
it moving forward?
We obviously had a period where we wanted to move forward. Then there was a time when we, from the Indian side, we had to review some of the commitments that we had made. But I think we are looking at the possibility of resuming this conversation in the near future.
Do you have does both sides have do both sides have
Have it
a
like a
timetable,
time frame?
a time frame
Yeah.
for?
Well, at the moment,
conclusion of
there's
this?
no specific time frame agreed, but an early time frame is what we are looking at.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
We're
that's-
looking forward to that too.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have that to strengthen not only for business, but also to strengthen
Relationship, people to people
Yes.
relationship, and of course military to military
Yes.
relationship.
And speaking of people to people relations, we know that all Asians have somehow similarity in culture. What do you think? And by the way, Ambassador, how do you find Filipino people, before we talk about the culture, our similarities, how do you find Filipino people?
Filipino
In
people
general.
are extraordinarily friendly.
Extraordinary.
And I would say they are very, very, very generous in spirit. I think you have very admirable qualities there. And I have always admired your ability to also be, shall we say, very welcoming of foreigners in this country. It's a very wonderful place to live and work in.
Oh, that's nice to know.
Yes, that's nice to hear.
That's nice
Yeah,
to know.
yeah, thank you.
But Ambassador, how do our countries have somehow similarity in culture? How do we?
And food.
Yes. Oh, I love their food.
Yeah.
Yesterday I was just cooking their chicken.
Curry.
Yes.
Well, I don't know whether you're aware, but many hundreds of years ago, India and the Philippines had a lot of exchanges. And if you look at some of the languages in the Philippines, some of the words in the Filipino language, they have Sanskrit roots.
Yeah.
So things like mukha or dukha, various words have very clear Sanskrit roots, which suggest that we had a lot of interactions thousands of years ago.
In the past.
And there are some artifacts that have been discovered in the Philippines, like the Laguna copper plate or the Agusan Tara. All of these have very strong connections with Indian culture. So Indian culture was connected with Southeast Asia very actively thousands of years ago.
We have the land, what is it? The land bridge.
The land
Yeah,
bridge has been talked about, but there were definitely lots of maritime
Maritime
cooperation. And we'd like to bring back that spirit. What's happening now is that there is, because of social media and a lot of awareness among the people, and as you rightly said, the last 3-4 years, I've seen a lot of Indian restaurants opening up in the Philippines. And there's a lot of interest in Indian food. People are beginning to experiment a little bit, and
they appreciate
Yeah.
it more now.
That's right. And I do hope that there'll be more Filipino restaurants in India also, so the Indians can also experience Filipino cuisine.
So, speaking of both nations, both India and the Philippines, rediscovering our shared culture, our shared ties that have been fostered thousands of years ago. What other shared aspirations both countries have as a nation, especially in keeping peace in the South Pacific region or in the Indo-Pacific region?
Yeah, so this
Only
is
the area where we have a problem with the
this
real
is,
estate.
this is an area, yes, yes. This is an area where I think both countries have a lot of common concerns. And the good thing is that we have moved from just having shared concerns to doing something about it. So last year we signed a major contract to supply shore-based missiles,
BrahMos, the
the
BrahMos.
BrahMos missiles to the Philippines. And I think this is a concrete manifestation. This is the first time that India has sold this capability to a friendly country. And obviously, we do see this as enhancing the national security interests of the Philippines, your defense interests.
Yeah.
And definitely, we would like to see more engagement between our militaries, joint exercises. Already, we have had an expansion in defense training. There are a lot of Philippine officials going into defense training institutions. Indian officers are being trained in the Philippines. The last year we had 3 senior officers in the Philippines for training. So between the military to military engagement and the defense industrial engagement, we would like to commit to a strong support for Philippines in addressing your national security challenges.
We also share the same support to India in your real estate problem in the Kashmir region. With that same country that we have a big problem with.
Thank you.
At mga katribo, marami pa tayong itatanong sa ating mahal na bisita na His Excellency, the Ambassador of India to the Philippines, pagkatapos po ng ilang paalala.
And we're back.
You're still watching?
Gising
na! Still here with us is His Excellency. Well, Excellency, I think I would like to give the table because he has been asking the ambassador while we're on break. So, okay, go
Thank you
ahead.
so much. Thank you so much, Sir Tribal Chinky. Off cam, sir, we've discussed, Your Excellency, we've discussed our common problem with China. You have a problem with China in that Kashmir region. And we have, of course, a very critical problem with China regarding the West Philippine Sea, which they call South China Sea. So how do you think, how do you suggest we both nations address that issue, that we can address issue while at the same time de-escalating the tensions in both regions?
Well, I think we already have a very strong exchange of views in terms of this set of developments that you mentioned. Obviously, we have an unresolved boundary question with the Chinese, and of late there have been developments there which are of concern. And obviously, I have seen that there are many developments in the West Philippine Sea which are causing a lot of concern in the Philippines. We do have a exchange diplomatically where we do talk about what has been happening and how we've been responding. And I think the lesson that we in India have learned is that we have to have a very firm and robust response to ensure that our interests are safeguarded.
Okay. Thank you so much.
He's really a very good, he's so eloquent. The
Yeah.
first time I talked to him and he explained something to me and I said, the ambassador is eloquent. Well, anyway, Ambassador, will you please tell us a little bit more about the Yoli Festival and if you have any parting words to our Katribos?
So the Holi Festival, which is coming up day after tomorrow,
Yeah, the Holi Festival.
is a festival that showcases the vibrancy of India in a very unique manner. You find that there's a lot of color. People are totally chilled out, enjoying. It's a spring festival, so it's a festival of hope. It's a festival of friendship where everybody's celebrating with each other, and there's a lot of color and a lot of vibrancy. So it's in a sense an emblem of India's civilizational diversity and vibrancy. And it's also being celebrated in some parts of the Philippines, and the Indian community is doing it along with their Filipino friends. So it's really become a global festival now.
Wow, I wish we
Nice.
could go there. Yeah, very colorful.
We will
Yeah.
cover that one of these days. Any parting shot, Excellency, to our people and also to yours, anything you'd like to convey before?
Well, the only thing I want to say is that India is next door to you in the Philippines. We see the maritime spaces as bridges that connect us. And we are a friendly democracy. We have a very warm relationship between our people. So all I'd like to see is that we do more together, and that we do more business, we do more trade, we have more tourism, and our people learn from each other's development experiences. Of course, we will work together as governments on political issues, global issues, regional issues, and to help each other, both in terms of developmental aspirations and national security aspirations. It's a very promising relationship. It's the best ever, but it can be much better.
Okay, thank you so much. We also want to do more with you about everything, defense, culture, business, investments, trade, everything. And tourism, of course.
Thank you.
So, mga katribo, yan po ang ating bisita ngayon, ang ating special, the Knowing More, Discovering India. And of course, the highlight of which is the Holi Festival that we hope every one of us will experience sooner or later. And thank you so much,
Thank you. Maraming
Excellency,
salamat,
for gracing our show.
Maraming
And we
salamat,
hope
and
to see more of you here.
And more of India.
And more of India
More of
here
India. The
in
amazing
any of our-
India.
Yes.
Namaste and mabuhay.
Thank you very much.